Welcome to today's podcast interview. I brought on Alison Smith. Alison, welcome.
Lovely to be with you. Thank you for having me.
Please give listeners a little background. Where do you live and what do you do?
I live in Scotland. I live across the Firth from Edinburgh, and I help people get unstuck.
Well, and that's a huge topic that I love talking about, and we're going to dive into that. Before we get into the topic of getting unstuck and how powerful language is, I'd love for you to share a little background on what life used to be like that changed the trajectory to how you got into teaching this work.
I think my trajectory changer was divorce. So up till then, I don't know that I thought about anything at all. So I didn't know why I was in a relationship, really. You know, in retrospect, you think, what? I didn't think about what love was about. Is this the relationship for me? It's just, I don't know, like in some automatum following what I thought I should do. And so it came as a bit of a surprise when my husband left the relationship. And then I dived into neuro-linguistic programming. And from then I got doing some Peruvian shamanic stuff, some Native American stuff, and just sort of absorbed a whole load of tools, and was really lucky that where I worked allowed me to use them all, and therefore I suddenly became the coach for the team. We merged with another organization, so I was able to apply it to the comms and the merger of the team. And then I realized there was sort of a law of diminishing returns, really, that there was only so much that I could do with the same team, and therefore decided to go off and do my own thing, really.
Okay, for those that are new to it or haven't heard of, what is NLP?
Neuro-linguistic programming is about how our brains work, really. So I've always loved patterns, and I did a statistical analysis at university thesis. So I like patterns, and neuro-linguistic programming really says there's patterns of why we do what we do, when we're stuck and when we're not stuck. And therefore, if we can learn what works for us, then we can apply it in more situations, and we can sort of unravel and reprogram ourselves in order to get different outcomes.
Okay, I have a question. When you're using the word patterns, can we also interchange that with habits?
Yes.
Okay, so for example, I talk a lot about something I share is what I call the thought cycle, that our thoughts create emotions, leads to actions, and create results. And for people, from my perspective, who talk about being stuck, and it's because they're in the same thinking, feeling loop. So yesterday is creating today and tomorrow. So in that idea, how do we help people get out of that same loop, the pattern, the habit, so they can transform or create new outcomes?
For me, I think it depends on the reason for that circling. So I have got a really easy technique that if you recognize that you're going around in circles, draw the circle. Think of a situation you're going around in circle. People listening can do this. Think of a situation you're going around in circle. Go and put it on hold. Go and get a pen, get a piece of paper, and then obviously come back off and hold and listen. And then think of the situation you're going around in circles with, and then draw the circle. And so, and everybody goes, well, I can't do that. And it's like, yeah, you can. And you'll notice that you're going in a particular speed and a particular direction, and it might be a particular size of circling. And all I do is invite you to change how you're drawing the circle. So it could be going quicker, could be making it bigger, could be going in the opposite direction. And what happens is that your brain, it sort of goes into a bit of like when you press reset on the computer, because it's so it's very familiar with that circling. And therefore, as soon as we put it in front of us, this circle in front of me is a copy of the circling I'm doing in life, we get inside. And therefore we change it, we make it bigger. It could be going around in squares. At some point when you're drawing, the brain resets itself, and then you're able to see the situation differently. So I think for me, it's about finding that one thing that enables you to be more conscious about what you're doing. Because invariably habits, the only reason I paused about patterns and habits is habits can sometimes, i.e. the patterns are very unconscious, and therefore we need to become consciously aware of them in order to be able to make changes.
Okay, so can we talk about a real life example? And I'll just share what I see come across a lot. I have a free resource on my website called a life assessment, and I ask people to rank the major life buckets: health, finances, relationships, hobbies, work, career, between a 1 and a 10, so that they can see their pain points, right? And the ones I see come across the most, I'm going to say there's 2 that come across hands down the most often, the most pain point, feeling stuck, are romantic relationships and money. So can we go with either one of those? If somebody is stuck in the same financial pattern and nothing changes, or, well, you know, I know how it is with romantic relationships, you keep attracting the same kind of person. But maybe if money is more tangible and more even people could relate to, can we talk about this from a financial angle?
Yes. There's lots of different ways you could do it. So if somebody was here, the chances are after 5 or 10 minutes, they would have said, you know, money doesn't grow on trees. So they might have said something linguistically that we can then work with. Because I'm always tracking for a metaphor people might be using, because that's the quickest way I know how to get to somebody's inner wisdom. So, you know, money doesn't grow on trees might explain why they're going in a circle, because they've got a belief about money not growing on trees. The interesting thing is a lot of money is made of paper, and therefore is, you know, you could argue is, but it would be about exploring that possibly. If it's a pattern of cycle, you know, circling round in terms of I have money, I don't have money. Again, it might be, I suppose the most common way I use nature would be, okay, let's go for a walk and let's notice what we notice out in nature that reflects your belief about money or the pattern about money. So we might go for a walk and somebody keeps going down dead ends. Because what happens when you take a problem out into nature in a walk is those patterns make themselves known in nature. So we might keep going, or it might be. So I had somebody the other week who, not to do with money, but it's a good example of where every crossroads we came to, because we were in the botanical gardens, every crossroads, the pattern he chose was, when I said, which direction do you want to go? He said, oh, I want to go on the one that's not signposted. So if there was four choices we could go, if there was one that didn't have a sign saying, you know, you get to A by going down here, he wanted to go down that one. So I think it's about noticing the patterns that come up when we go for a walk. So it could be the fact that we go, I don't know where to go. And so we start walking down a path, and then we turn around and go, no, I don't like this path. We'll go to another path. And what it then does is go, okay, so is that how you're doing it with money? It's like you keep changing your mind about how you're going to bring abundance into your life. Or is it about fear of what the end goal is? Because what I might then do is invite somebody to go, right, so this path, every path so far, you've turned around because you've doubted that you've made the right decision. So this time we are going to walk. And there's a recording in my podcast where I do this, because I've written a poem, and the poem is about walking to the next crossroads and only making a decision when you get there. And I cannot tell you how difficult I found it walking along a path that I didn't know what it was, knowing that because I'm telling myself, no, you just have to walk on here, and then you'll only make a decision when you get to the next crossroad. And it's that, how many times in the space of 6 minutes, I bet, I wanted to turn around because I was not prepared to not know where I was going.
So in that example right there, is that about building trust and confidence, or having faith the next step will always unfold?
Yeah, I think everybody would be different, but yes, in that instance, it was my logical brain always wanting to be in control and wanting to know the answer, and therefore it was, but no, I don't have to make a decision. I'm on a path. Let's just do one step at a time.
Yeah.
And when we get to the crossroads, that is one of my patterns. One of my patterns is always wanting to know ahead of the game what the outcome's going to be. And therefore, so therefore, if you're out in nature, that's what I'm doing. It's like, where's the map? Where am I headed? And so that's why I like using nature, because the patterns that get in our way, whether it's romantically, financially, work, health, or whatever, we will run them when we're out in nature. And because it's not about health, it's just a walk in nature, because it's not dealing directly with that husband that we're falling out with, it's just a walk in nature, we can experiment. Let me see what it's like to go down this, what I think is a dead end, because I can't tell you how many times people think it's a dead end, and then we see something right at the end that means it's not a dead end. But the person had to persevere, had to override the belief that it's a dead end. But very rarely, if you think you're at a dead end, are you really at a dead end?
Okay, so I want to ask you, because the way my brain works is I love to hear this stuff, and I live in curiosity, but I also want steps or like a formula or a process. So here's what I heard from you, and I want to see if I picked it up.
Yeah.
For me, it really came down to two things. When you walked through that and helping people, whatever life problem you're having, if you go out in nature, so number one, you're removing yourself from that box. You go out in nature. So the first step I heard was simply becoming aware of those beliefs and your language around the problem. The second thing I heard of is it's creating that new belief or that new pattern, a new way of thinking or speaking about it. Is that how you would say?
Yes, I would say that comes after the walk.
Okay.
So the answer, what you've just said, sounds like we haven't yet sent logic on a coffee break.
Okay, so we put that in the middle, because I actually started that.
Definitely. Yeah. So for me, it's identify the problem.
Yeah.
And then send it on a coffee break.
Okay.
Because the story we're telling ourselves and the beliefs and the mindset we've got about it, and why we are stuck, because we get really upset when we think about that person or what's happening currently. So there's a lot of emotion attached to it, and there's a heck of a lot of history associated with it. So actually, I do not want to know about the detail of your problem. Or do you? It's like you already know it. So let's send it on a break. We'll put it in a little bubble and we'll send it on a coffee break, but we're coming back to it later. So yes, that's first. Then we just go, I'm going to go for a walk and notice what I notice. And I'm going to notice patterns, either in where I avoid going, where I want to go, what do I feel comfortable about doing, what keeps repeating. So it could be I keep coming across things that are you're like trees have fallen down in my path, and it's that whole, but could you get around them? Oh yeah. So what happens is that once we've given our inner wisdom chance to talk and show us the patterns, when logic comes back in again at the end, logic goes, yeah, you know what? Normally we're really quick to see a barrier, and it's a twig. we build it up into a, you know what I mean? We build it into this big, huge tree we can't possibly get over. And yet, really, they're little twigs. And of course, we can step over them.
Yeah.
And that shift. So it's as if we've had an internal shift that we're then able to logically say, oh, this is what I was doing. This is what I'm going to do. But it's happened at an unconscious level because that's the realm with which we've been trying to do it. We're not trying to do it logically because actually we'd have done it by now if logic was going to give us the answers.
Okay, so I'm curious if you talk much about this. So what this is making me think is when people are in that analysis paralysis, over analyzing, stressed out because they're spending so much time up here, and I'm pointing to my head. So we're so, quote, stuck because we're in our head. Now I've seen a meme where it's saying that the longest journey any individual will take is the 14 inches from their head to their heart.
Yeah.
And we're so disconnected from our heart, our inner knowing, our guidance, because we're living in this high stress, it's beta brainwave. So I'm curious, when you help people calm that stress, right? That's the whole point of the coffee break, to turn the monkey mind off.
Yeah.
Why is it important to turn the monkey mind off?
Because it'll keep getting in the way. The interesting thing, the only reason I got into it, using metaphor, is because I am the world's worst person. I will run rings round. If somebody says to me, oh, Alison, you should do this, or what about that? My logical brain comes in and defends its current reality. So my brain will just go, no, I'm right. I've been doing it like this. And so I will defend my current reality. And so I think, so my experience of it, and therefore I share it with others, is that my logical brain isn't helpful because it's fearful. It wants to protect how far it's got thus far. And therefore, that's why I say that you have to send logic on a coffee break, not a holiday. Because logic, if you say to logic, I want you to send you on a holiday, it goes, I'm not letting you in charge for a holiday. A holiday's a long time. No, I'm staying. So logic, and this is how, neuroscience says we have to tell our brain, go on a coffee break. We'll be back in 45 minutes. You'll have loads to think about. So we're not ignoring you. We're not discounting your value, but we are saying that you've got us stuck currently. And can we now access a more creative part of us that is accessed not via our brain?
Yeah. You know what else it's making me think of, just to simplify? It's getting us out of that autopilot, that unconscious way of being. And by pausing, putting the logical mind, so this can be done breath work, meditation, etc. By pausing, it gives us that opportunity to stop the momentum and get back in the driver's seat of our life, consciously creating our reality.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And the biggest problem is that very rarely are we able to send it on, press the pause button, because we keep trying to tell the story. It's like, oh yeah, I've got it now. After a minute's walking, oh, I've got it now. And when we invite the logic and the story back in. So if I'm walking with a client, a large majority of my time is going, no, stick with the metaphor. Stick with the metaphor. We're going to stick with the metaphor for 5 to 45 minutes, for half an hour or whatever. We've got plenty of time to allow logic in later. But let's just allow that part of us that normally doesn't get heard a bit of a time to explore for us.
So I have a question for you, especially being in the coaching space. My mind is always on. I'm very aware of my own lingo, how I speak, how I think, and obviously aware of others. Now, here's my question. I continually see people who keep telling stories of the past and what's not working. And then they wonder why nothing in their life changes. For example, I had a call with a gentleman recently who is remarried. And I think he's been in this new marriage for at least 8 years. And he was still talking about his ex and the problems. But I see this all the time. People, one of my coaching clients, he had been reeling in the past for 18 months of a former relationship. People are reeling in the past of the stories of their health, or, when they got fired, or being victims, right? We're giving our
Yeah.
power away. So how can we help
Yeah.
people break these patterns, tell a new story to get a new outcome?
If the client's with me at the time, I'm quite abrupt,
Yeah.
in terms of I don't want to hear the story. No. So for me, in a one-to-one situation, it's much easier because I can keep going, no, that's not what I've asked. We've parked that. That's why I've learned to say we're sending it. No, we've parked it. I don't want to know that. That's not helpful. What's our objective here? And it's coming back to what's our objective. If somebody listening is in that, then it's much harder because I don't know what language would help them park it. But I think I don't know. The example that comes to mind, and I don't know if it's precisely right, but is the beating ourselves up with a stick. So if somebody could say, yeah, actually, I keep beating myself up with a stick. That's the pattern. I'm not looking forward because I'm just beating myself up about what I did in the past. And so I have done it numerous times where we go out into nature and we pick up those sticks. We're picking up sticks, imagining we're picking up sticks now to beat ourselves up in the future. And then we have to put them down. And it's just enlightening about, we can be at the top of a hill where there are no sticks. And people go, oh, but I need a stick to beat myself up with, don't I? So they've obviously got like a bag full of sticks. So I had somebody the other week going, how big is that bag, that imaginary bag with sticks? And how long have you been picking up those sticks to beat yourself up in the future? So for me, that comes back to absurdity, really. It's getting really silly about how big is the bag you've got on your back that you're using to beat yourself up with. So tomorrow you've got this stick and it, which stick are you going to use? How many sticks have you got to choose? Oh, well, I've got 10 sticks. And which stick are you going to use today? And it's just having a bit of fun. And then one person's had a fire at home, so they actually got some sticks from the walk and then took them home and put them in the fire. But it's doing whatever to really bring home I suppose the stupidity that we can laugh at ourselves about. You know what? Yeah. I'm remembering things now in order to be able to actually have a go at myself in a week's time.
Yeah.
So there's a fine line between the absurdity of it, the stupidity of it, the silliness of it.
Yeah.
But that's what gets us out of the patterns.
I think it's important to lighten up. And you know what? Here's what came to mind. I wrote this phrase down because this is something that I've taught coaching clients, but it is when I'm similar to you, very abrupt. I'm like, well, how's that working for you? Right? Tell a new story. But this is what I offer them and what I'm offering listeners. If you catch yourself, because now you're being aware, you're observing. If you catch yourself, you can input, and this has been a pattern interrupt for me up until now.
Nice.
Up until now. So that alone is a perspective shift. And now you're opening up that fork in the road into option up until now.
Gorgeous. Yeah, nice.
Okay, so here's what I want to ask you, because I love the metaphors you use in nature, but you have an acronym, landscape, and I'd love for you to walk us through that.
Yeah, basically it was, I do landscaping your life is the process, what I call the process I use using nature. And then I looked at all the tools that I use and went, I'd like to use an acronym. Oh, look, I can use landscape. How do I shoehorn everything I do into that acronym? And it was really quite easy. It was like, how exciting. So the first L stands for language and words. And I think that's because it is about observing the language. If we can't see the wood for the trees, if we're stuck in a rut, if we're going around in circles, stop. Don't go and explore the logic and the story. Let's stick with the metaphor. So language and words. I had one client where they were looking for answers. And as soon as they start, and I can't remember what the verb was, but as soon as they started looking for solutions, they found them. So the language we use when we're stuck, if we could write it down, we could just go, if I just change that word. If I just change that word, if I stop looking for answers and start looking for solutions, I look in a different direction. We've got a different relationship.
Wow.
Some people would have a different relationship to answers and solutions. One keeps them stuck, one opens up a whole load. So that's
Sorry, I had to pause you there. I want to take a time out because what you just said, I mean, like that alone, it was flashing neon lights. We're so focused on looking for answers instead of looking for solutions. That alone.
Yeah, no, that was a huge one with the client in question.
Yeah. Love that.
But then, so I've written a blog on that, but then it might be, it's not about the looking. So it could be about discovering answers. So each individual listening may have it might be solutions, it might be opportunities, it might be answers, it might be options, it might be perspectives. It's finding the word that, because I say that our language sometimes keeps the doors in our mind closed to the solutions. And therefore changing the words can open like keys to the doors to finding the solutions. So if we find that we're always using a particular phrase or a particular word, then let's explore that, let's change it, let's see what that changes. So that's why language and words are first, I think. Analogy and metaphor is the A in landscape. So that links really the fact that I don't tend to use analogies too much, but metaphor is absolutely what I'm searching for in people's language. At the end, NLP and mindsets, it's just the fact that I do use NLP tools and techniques and certainly talk to people about mindset. The D is for drawing and collage. So if you're, if anybody listening has got a problem, they'd like some insight on. So the drawing of it would be, if it was a mountain, what sort of mountain would your problem be? Draw it. How steep is it? What's the top like? Just, very quickly draw the mountain that best represents the current problem. And then the solution is, we'll just draw a different mountain. What's the antidote to that mountain? Oh, it needs paths. I've had people who have drawn a mountain without paths. I've had people draw a mountain and they realize it's a huge mountain and I'm trying to go up it in flip-flops. I've not prepared it with the right resources, or oh my God, it needs a base camp and I haven't got any of that. There was one where the mountain was so, like, the sides were so slippy that you could imagine that anybody trying to get up the mountain would just slip right down again, because there was no cragginess, no undulations that somebody could walk around. So, or it could be about drawing hill, suddenly realize, oh, actually, I'm calling it a mountain, it's really a hill. So I think it's about, so the drawing and collage is about either using collage, you can make a collage, or a drawing. Sometimes it could be pick a picture that represents the current problem and then cut things out of it and add other things. Because all we're doing is going, current situation looks like this in our heads. And if we make changes metaphorically, our brain will then translate it back to the real life. We don't have to know what that means in real life. Logic doesn't have to know. It just goes, oh, I feel a bit different because you've drawn some paths. Somebody when they did the mountain the other week hadn't drawn themselves on it. And they went, I just need to draw me. And then, I understand how I relate to the mountain and how I get up the mountain. It's as if they were seeing a mountain and then not even trying to do anything with it. So that's a D. S is for stories and poems. So I write a lot of stories, a lot of poems. They're never about Fred in an office. They're always about a poppy or a seed or a stone circle. And what I'm using more and more at the moment is doing workshops around the poems I've written, because they're all written with a self-development sort of perspective to them, really, and they work for me. So they're all how I've been able to move myself from A to B, and therefore other people get the same insight as I do from reading the poems. Cards and games, you know, there's a transformation game I use a lot of different card sets, but again, it's just a different way of tapping into our inner wisdom. So that's the C. The second A is absurdity and laughter, because I can't not do that. So yeah, so if we're out for a walk, I might, you know, the picking up the sticks, you know, or the getting to the top of a hill and shouting, or I don't know, it's the absurdity of it in order for us to laugh at the behavior that was in the past keeping us stuck. P, I just had to be a bit more, oh, I've got landscape, what do I do with P? So that was just about patterns and programs. So I suppose that was a bit more, I don't know, it's a bit more vague, but that is what we're looking at. We're looking for the patterns, we're looking for the programs. They're not necessarily the tools that I use. And then the final E, again, is more of an outcome of using the tools, and that's empowerment and awareness. But and to be fair, I suppose what do I think I do is help people become more aware and take personal responsibility, rather than, as you said earlier, seeing themselves the victims and at the receipt of things happening to them. Yeah. And it's more about observing where we have control.
Well, and I know what it feels like. Like I have, you know, a lot of compassion and empathy for those feeling stuck in the mud. You said something about can't see the forest through the trees. And so it is easier for us outside looking down and kind of piecing it together. I almost feel like I'm like the organizer for people's lives. Are you familiar with Marie Kondo?
Oh, yes.
The Japanese woman, her way of organizing, but even that, like her joy, her whole thing in organizing is to create joy in your living space. And I think for you, what you're creating is helping people become architects of their life.
Nice.
Right?
I like that.
So if we could come from a high level overview, because I think what you've shared are some really good tools to help people get started. But if they are feeling stuck, if they are living in high stress, if they do lack clarity, how can they break the patterns, shift their focus, and clean slate?
I would say get out into nature. There's a list on my website of sayings around stuck in a rut, can't see the wood for the trees, feel like a fish out of water, up a creek without a paddle. And actually, they're all on the series 2 of my podcast had all of those sayings. And what I would say is pick a saying that best reflects how you're feeling. So I've got uphill struggle, stuck between a rock and a hard place, treading water, so you name it. But as soon as you've found a saying that reflects how you're feeling, go out into nature and mirror that in nature, because you will find a solution. You will think differently when you come back from that walk.
Okay, here's what's coming to mind. 2 are top of mind for me. So you choose which one you want. If somebody says I feel stuck in a rut, because those, or no, I'm going to change it. Cool. I want to break this cycle. Break the cycle, or feel kind of like hamster on a wheel.
Break the cycle for me would be go out into a wood, walk in the cycle, walk in a circle that reflects your cycle, that you feel that you're going around in, and break it. And notice what you notice when you try and break from it. I had somebody doing that the other week, and they they got so far. I said, "Where do you want to go?" Oh, they knew where they wanted to go. I want to go down there. So they go down there, and then, I don't know, 100 yards. Oh no, I might have made the wrong decision. I said, but you know where you want to go. Yeah, but that way might be more exciting. So it's that breaking the cycle is about just exploring it in nature. Okay, so walk down a different direction and notice what you notice, because it's as if you've rubbed out and loosened the attachment to your current circling. So if you want to turn a corner, go and find a corner to turn in nature. I mean, that is just such a powerful exercise.
Yes. Okay, so here's what I want to ask you. You shared with me a billboard message you would give to humanity. Do you remember what you told me?
About being themselves.
Well, you said to stop listening to the musts, the shoulds.
Oh yeah. Well, yes, it's it's the musts, oughts, and shoulds that stop us being us. And I think humanity needs, you don't go into a wood and start going, expect cloned trees and get all upset when every tree is unique. And yet we look at humanity and think we've all got to be the same. It's that whole, we've got to take, humanity needs each of us in our unique selves, not with the, oh, well, I can't be that excitable, or I can't be that intuitive, or I can't be that direct. Because, some people do need us to be direct or excitable or whatever. And so I think it's just stopping listening to everybody else about and being us.
Well, and for me, what that takes me back to is when I fell into the cog in the wheel mentality, go to school, get a degree, climb the corporate ladder. For me, it turned out the American dream was not my dream. And the reason now this is just me, the reason I felt so unhappy and unfulfilled is because I felt literally cramped, stuck in this, what I call a boring ass box. And my creative side, wanting to be free and literally think outside the box. So talk about your metaphors and stuff you're doing. I had to step out of the known, the comfort zone, so that I could, like, quote, Tony Robbins would say this, unleash my authenticity.
Oh. And I also think it's about noticing the beliefs we have about, so I have other people saying to me, oh, you can't do that in business. You can't do that in business. I go, yeah, well, I do that in business. So I think there's but I absolutely have 100% confidence in it. So I think there's something about I think there's a difference between 99% confidence and 100% confidence. And I think it's about getting to the 100% confidence about, you know what, this is what the world needs. The world needs me. Not me as a clone of the teacher that I was working with last month and the book I've read this month and,
Yeah. What I wrote down is don't let others' beliefs limit you.
Nice.
Okay, so here's what I want to ask you. What are some of your daily rituals or practices that help you stay forward focused and creating that clarity in the next steps?
A bath every morning. I can't be doing with a shower. A shower is too quick for me, gets me far too excitable so I really notice. So if I'm in a hotel for a few days, I really notice that I haven't had that slow start to the day. So it's a bath in the morning, would be one of them. And yeah, I think it's also, it shouldn't come as a surprise, but walking in nature. So I had a new knee a year ago, and I now realise how, I suppose, stuck I'd got because I wasn't able to get out into nature. So now it's like today, I went for a walk. I'm extending the number of steps I'm doing every day, but it has to be in nature. It's like there's a route that I could go that was longer, but it's down streets and houses, and I keep making the walk longer by adding more nature in.
Well, and for you, I think you are drawn to nature because it helps you create presence, and it's your way of being mindful and intentional.
Yeah, and I think it's a bit like I don't go swimming in the sea when it's grey. And because it doesn't have to, I'm not going swimming to swim. I'm not going swimming exercise. I'm going swimming to connect with nature. And therefore, for me, it's the sun and the, oh my God, aren't you beautiful? And I'm not saying nature isn't beautiful when it's wet and grey, but I feel the cold more than, it's just, I just can't override the how cold it is. Whereas when it's sunny, it doesn't matter. There's ice on the ground, the water's, 43 or whatever, and I don't feel it.
Here's what I want to ask you. What is a key takeaway you want listeners to get from our conversation?
Be mindful of your language.
What's the saying? Your word is your word is the wand.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the be mindful of your language, particularly when you're stuck. It's the what words are you using over and over again, because they'll be the words. It's the words that are keeping you stuck. So change the words.
Yes. All right. I have a few questions to ask you to wrap up the interview.
Cool.
What is a quote or motto that you live by?
Well, I'll have to go on the one that's in my on my desk. Go confidently in the direction of your dreams. Live the life you've imagined, by Thoreau.
Yes, I love that. What is a book you're currently reading or highly recommend?
Oh, the one that I most often recommend is Tiny Habits by B.J. Fogg.
What's the takeaway from that?
Celebrate small successes. So don't wait until you've done your. So I suppose in my rehabilitation with my knee, it's the celebrate every day because I've been able to do a little bit more today, not wait until I've managed to get 15,000 steps or whatever. And at the back of the book there's 100 different ways to celebrate, so it's really because by celebrating our mind then goes, oh, I like that, I'll do more of it.
Yeah.
So it's the and starting small, it's not trying big. So yeah, that's the one that I most often recommend to people, I would say.
Final question. What advice would you give your younger self?
Be more Alison-y.
Yes. Alison, it's such a great note to end on. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed it. Great questions. Thank you.